All right, so let's dive in here. This is Brian Bailey here. Hopefully, I'm live. I have about a 50% fail rate, which would be pretty good if I was hitting from 130 yards for in positions, but not so good on a media platform when you're trying to get information out to to the group. So let me share my screen here. I hope everyone's doing well, and thank you for your time and thank you for joining this conversation. Today, we're going to talk what we call Core 5. What is Core 5? What are the components of that? Then how can we train more efficiently and smarter and create a better system or create better performances by training a little bit smarter? That's really what Core 5 is about. So let's go ahead and dive in here and let's get started. All right, so let's dive in here. Whoa. Brian Bailey here. Hopefully I'm live. I have about a 50% fail rate, which would be pretty good if I was hitting from a. Okay, I am live. I got feedback from my iPad. I did not know it was open. So let's try this one more time. Take two. So Core 5, what is it? What is it about? Core 5 inside of GameForge is what we talk about your Core 5 distance bends that you have the most during a round. What we see professionally is majority on the PGA Tour, you're looking at about 150 to 160, 150 to 160, 160 to 170, kind of that common highest dispersion of shots. Collegiately, it gets usually in the 130s. Juniors can even push down to the 100s. So again, it really depends on what level of golf and what the length of the golf course you are, and of course, how you hit it. Like I said, on the women's side, you look at about 130. Some girls will average 120, 110. Some will go average 140, 150, their highest bends in. But again, there's no rhyme or reason, but on average, that's kind of the way it works out. So the key here is you need to figure out what your 5 most hit from bends are. The reason why is those are the shots you have the most. So we got to make sure we're performing at our in position level or better to maximize the fact that we have so many shots from these distances. And of course, an in position is simply how many shots do I hit within 20 feet? Greens hit within 20 feet. We call those IPs or in positions. And then we're going to do a little fun with this. So we're going to look at in position rates. We're going to look at actual distance bends, and we're going to compare NCAA female that was a third team All-American, and she's looking to make it to All-American this year. So we're going to compare those by distance bends and what's happening. And we're also going to take a PGA player who was just outside of the top 10 last year, and he's pushing to get inside the top 10 this year. And I think he might be, but it's going to show you his numbers in relationship to the top 10 and what it's going to take. Where is that little bit of separation from him being one of the best in the world? So we're going to add something at the end, which we call BIP rate. BIP rates, you will see in the scoring section inside of the GameForge index, that is simply birdies to in positions. How many birdies do I make when I hit an in position? This is a great compounding statistic that just kind of gives us an idea of how are you maximizing opportunities and conversion rates. So that's kind of where we're going. So inside of GameForge, if you go under the compete section in the left pull down bar, and then that left navigation bar, you go under compete, you will see approach graphs. And that's really where we're going to be hanging out here for the next couple minutes. And only full stat users, as a caveat, have these. So if you're not doing shot by shot data inside of GameForge, you will not be filling out. If you're just doing quick stats, you will not be completing will not have the approach graphs that match what we're talking about. So I always say, if you're breaking 80, you better be doing shot by shot. If you're shooting 80 and above, quick entry is great. It gives you all the information you need to improve and come up with sound game plans. So now let's take a deeper dive here and look at what we're talking about. So kind of a general breakdown of what the actual approach graph looks like. You can see we have this gray dotted line that kind of rolls through. That's our expected in position curve. So those show us from what distances we would expect you to hit what percentage in position. So as you can see here, as you pull over at 50%, 50% really happens right around the 130 to 140 zone. So at 130 to 140 yards, 50% of your shots on the range or in play should be within 20 feet. If you ideally want to get that a little bit higher, maybe 55, 60%, but we don't want that number to get in the 40s, 30s, or 20s. So we don't want to see big gaps. So the gray line is our optimal line. And then we have this jagged blue line that kind of rolls down it. That's our accuracy line. So what the accuracy line shows you is from each distance spin, it shows you how often you're above the curve. So you can see, you know, from 20 to 30 yards, this player is achieving at a much higher rate, pushing close to 90%, where we'd expect 80. So you can kind of see at a roughly 40 to 50 yards. Now they only had 8 shots, which we see down here at the very bottom. When you see the distance spin 40 to 50 and it has a number in parentheses, that's how many opportunities they have from that zone. What you can see is they actually are hitting 40% of their shots in position, but we would be expecting 65. So that's like a 25% gap. But again, they've limited the damage by giving themselves very few shots from there. So we have the accuracy line that's jagged, the optimal line that is curved. And then what we do at the very top, you can see I lit up in blue, is the accuracy rating. That takes the blue line, the average, all the way from the 100% from 1 to 10, all the way out to as far as shots you have into the green. And it shows you how often the blue line is above or below. At what percentage is it? So you can see this player is hitting at 104%, which is a little bit better than average, which would be 100. So this player is a really good ball striker overall. And then you can see something else we do is we talk about opportunities gained. So where that really comes from is now we take density of shot, where you are on the blue line, and we basically project out how many more or less opportunities you have than the average field. So this touring player has 30 more opportunities than the average player on tour. So you can kind of see the strength. So to kind of go in a little bit deeper, and I did highlight at the very bottom the core five, which we talked about, the 5 zones that they have the most shots. And you can see they're at 150 to 160s. They're number 1, 140 to 150, and 160 to 170. So you can see roughly was at 150, well over 200 shots just come from these 3 over a season. You can see these 3 distance spins has over 200 shots into the green. That's why it's important your core 5 is up to snuff, giving you the ability to do what you need to do. And you can see at 130 to 140, they're above. 140 to 150, he's right at the line. 150, 160, right at the line. 160, 170, a little below, but then you can see 170 to 180, he's well above. So again, you can kind of see his core 5 scoring is pretty good. The next thing we're going to look at is the graph that's right under your approach graph, which we call shot densities. So this kind of gives us that math into kind of gives you the visual for the math for opportunities gained. And again, I went ahead and kind of highlighted the 5. You can see that the 5 zones that he has the most are this nice little bell curve in the middle. Yours might be spread out or it might be shifted left or right. But you can see that this player had 75 shots, 74, 73, 66, 61. So his highest abundance of shots. So 200, a little over 320, 330 shots came from these 5 zones. So again, that shows you how important that is to this player's game. And again, like I said, that's just giving you an idea of density, where your shots are coming from. So inside of core 5, you need to understand where the shots you have the most. And then is your accuracy line at or above, and is that giving you opportunities? Because the one thing you don't want is to have the shot that you have the most and have a hole there. That's going to take away from performance. It's going to take away from birdie opportunities, because this is all approach shots, right? So remember, these are approach graphs. IP curves are all about par -2. So this is about giving yourself an opportunity to score birdie. So this is just a good concept of what shot density is, as well as the approach graphs. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do some quick case studies and show you how a player can kind of assess where they are and say, where do I need to improve? Is there a zone that I'm failing at? Am I doing my job? Am I not converting? What's kind of happening? So with this player, we actually have a NCAA player. Like I said, I went on the women's side. Data wise, I believe last year she was a honorable mention or 3rd team All-American is how they describe it. So this was over the year, and this compares her to the All-Americans that competed last year on the NCAA women's side. So you can, so in this little case study, what I did is that I showed the NCAA player, I showed how many shots they had from the different distance spins, what the distance spins were, or actually, let me scratch that. Let me go back. So we have our BIP rate, which we talked about, is their birdie to end positions, because we're going to actually show birdie, how important these approaches are and how it affects predicting birdie, right? So the NCAA player actually put their conversion rates. So 100 to 110 was their highest bin, and you can see above at about 106 shots. And then you can kind of see, basically, these are all the distance bin and her percentages of. So she was 40% in position from 120 to 130. You can see a little bit below the line. So again, it gives you that concept. And I took the All-American numbers and compared it to her. And you can see the delta is simply where's the difference. So the honorable mention player outdid the All-American, the top 10 players in the country, from 110 to 120. They tied from 120 to 130. And then you can see the All-American started doing a little bit better at distance. They had a 5% delta, 4% delta and change. So doing 5% better. And then, but the big thing I think you really are going to see definitely inside of birdie rates is the All-American was converting roughly 50%. And this player was, converting low 30. So what we're going to see is she probably really matched head to head with ball striking. But the reason the All-American pulled away with birdies is the fact of conversion rates. I know that's not core 5 that what we're talking about, but again, it's that concept of how do I apply this more and more to understand what's happening inside of performance. So we're going to jump down here really quickly and we're going to take a quick look, right? So after we do the math, you can see that the player from their percentages for their core 5 is they had 179 in positions. Where if you took the same percentages by the All-American, they had 185. So over an entire season, we're talking 6-shot difference. So what is that? 0.24 rounds. So 6 into 24 is 8. So it's 0.08. It's nothing, right? 0.08 shots per tournament. So per tournament round. So not a really big number there. So ball striking, you can tell that this player matched the All-American. So she has the ball striking ability to elevate to All-American status. Like I said, the big difference was BIP rate, 33 to 48%. And so again, if you kind of think of predictive birdies, with the third team All-American, we'd be looking at 60 birdies coming from her core 5, where the All-American created 88. So we're looking at more than a 27 putts. So that's basically 1 birdie per round more prediction wise. And that's the big separator for the first team All-American to third team All-American. So again, just a really cool concept of how important core 5 is. Am I giving myself opportunities? And you can see this player really did what she needed to do from approach shot to on our core 5 to kind of match the best players in the country. But you can see that conversion rate was a little bit low and basically walked away with less birdies. Case number 2, we're going to take a top 12, 15 player that is pushing, trying to become top 10 and best in the world. And what does that look like? So what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to take the PGA player. BIP rate is at 49% for the player, where the top 10 in the world really convert at 61%. So you can see, again, on the PGA Tour, you don't see big changes. So you can see putting wise, the top 10 are doing just a little bit better. The average distance bin for this player was 160 yards, 160 to 170. You can see basically 73 or 75 shots came from there. And then as we kind of span out, this is kind of, again, the PGA player had 31% at 160 to 170, 29% for the top 10, 35% at 150 to 160, 36% for the top 10. So a delta of 1. So the PGA player outside of the top 10 won the first delta. The next 3 deltas all go to the top 10 in the world, 140 to 150, 37 to 41. And this is an interesting one, I think, from 130 to 140, where this player had 66 shots, and 8% delta change. This player hits it really, 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 really long. So I think this 130 to 140 is a gap, probably a gap range for them. So again, there's an 8% delta change, which is really big professionally, especially at that level. 37-34 at 170 to 180. So you can see, again, there was a slight delta change between the two, but they were pretty tight. So let's hit the let's play button and go take a look at their core five. How did they do? And let's predict some birdies. Total in positions, 131 for the top 20 player. That was for the season. And 140 would be what we would project for the top 10 PGA players overall, kind of as a collective. So once again, you can see ball strikings were really, really tight. A little bit more opportunity, but again, you do that over an entire season, over 12, 14, 18 events. Again, that's less than one opportunity per tournament. So again, this player's ball striking is good enough to put them in that extra level. The big thing we can see is that a little bit of opportunity with a little bit of different in BIP rate change went from 77 predicted birdies all the way to 99. So again, you're looking at a 22, if my math is right. Yep. A 22 birdie difference over time so that's basically per tournament. That's probably close to one birdie per tournament. And again, at the pro level, being number one in the world, top 10 to being 12 to 15, it's not much. And you can see a big piece of that right here is just off of birdie conversions. So this top player, once again, it was not as where the college player, it was very obvious, a big BIP rate dispersion, and you knew the birdies were going to be out of kilter. But with this one, you could see very little in position, very little in BIP rate, but over an entire season, that's a lot of birdies left on the golf course at their core level. So these are the shots that they have the most, and we're not even talking the periphery, right? So again, at their core, this is what kind of happened. So we want to thank everyone for joining me on Game Forge today. I hope this was beneficial. And the fact that core scoring is of the utmost importance to be able to train and practice. So again, I would really encourage all players under 80 to be using full stats. Start getting that information on shots into the green. What are your in position rates looking like? And then if there's a zone that you're missing, if I'm falling 8, 10, 12, 20, 30% behind the line, what is it? Is it equipment? Is it technique? Is it a gap? You know, is it mental? What is that piece that's preventing me from performing? Because if I can get my core values, my core five kind of leveled and where it needs to be, I got a chance. I'm not going to give away shots via approach to the field, and again, if I can kind of do that, and as long as my tee balls are relatively close to the others, I'm giving myself a lot of the same opportunities. I give myself a lot of same opportunities. Now we can go fight it out on the putting green and see who's better. So I hope this is beneficial in kind of understanding core five. You'll hear us talk about it all throughout. I just wanted to give a quick jump in here. I actually had a conversation with a player a couple of days ago. We kind of sparked this on. So I want to thank them for gearing me towards where we are right now. And if you have any questions or concerns, definitely reach out to Mark Sweeney or myself via Game Forge. We're here to help. We want you to perform to your best ability, and we're trying to bring clarity to your game. So thank you so much, and I look forward to future presentations with you. I forgot to hit record.